So, my name is Dr. Taylor Goodwin. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I went to medical school and found out, well, before I went to medical school, I found out that there were some alternative medicine programs. And so that's what I specialized in. Went through the whole medical school thing, learned pharmaceuticals as well, but given that since I was about 9 years old, my mom had been saying things like, Taylor, stop harvesting the neighbor's weeds. Seemed like a pretty straightforward pick. So alternative medicine, specifically I specialized and became a naturopathic doctor. And there are a lot of alternative modalities or tools that are in the toolkit when you're going into alternative medicine. There's things like acupuncture, there's things like hydrotherapy, and then there's my personal favorite, herbs. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I came over from Arizona, a little bit of a climate shock. It is a lot greener here, and it was delightful to find out that about half of all of the plants that I've been using in Arizona, and I've been getting them from, ordering them in, they just grow wild here.
Yes, they do.
Awesome. And so it's been a delight. I just go out there and I find something new, pretty much, every few walks. It's like, oh, where are you? And then half the time it's something that's in the book.
So you still find things you haven't come across?
Yeah, I still do. So I've only been here for about a year and a quarter. And so the plants that are here are different than the ones in Oklahoma, and different than the ones in Arizona. And so identification in Arizona, completely different plant spectrum. So I'm picking up the ones here more and more. Some of them I knew, but I have worked with a lot of them on the medicinal side, but that's when they're sent to me in a, like, here's, preserved, freshly picked, etc., whatever it is. And so, but I have done plant identification, and I've led walks, and I still do. But yeah, I'm still learning new ones around here and finding them. So there's some really good ones. For what we're going to go ahead and do today, we're going to talk about 3 plants that grow locally here in the Ozarks. We're going to talk about their lore, their uses, and how to identify them. Before we do that, I always like to do a little section on safety, because, like we talked about before, we've got a few plants that are a little less friendly. Anyone want to take a guess at what this is? Looks really pretty. Looks kind of like wild carrot, but it's not.
Oh, yeah.
This one is poison hemlock, and that grows around here. Poison hemlock is, well, put it this way. There was a park ranger. He was doing his job, and he was out in the boondocks, and he pulled out a sandwich and found out he hadn't put any lettuce on it. He reached out, grabbed the nearest leaf, put it on there, and unfortunately that was his last sandwich.
Oh, no.
So poison hemlock is, spoilers, poison. So when we are talking about using any plants, we always have to talk about kind of the safety side of it. So we'll talk about safety, we'll talk about the plants, and then at the end, I have some fun events. I'll go ahead and let you know what those are. And this one is also a monthly event, usually on first Tuesdays. It's Thursday this time because the library had something going on. But for safety, to go further into that, let's start there. I usually like to tell a story about, I was on a bit of a burnout cycle in the middle of med school, where I was so excited to be a med student until about, a year and a half ago. And now, not so much. And so when I saw this course come up as an option, and they said, you have to pay a bunch extra, but then you get to go to the Rocky Mountains, and you get to go and study plants out in the Rocky Mountain area. I was like, sign me up, I don't care, here's my money, I'm out of here. And it was delightful. So for a week, got to go and pretend I wasn't a med student. Fantastic. But also got to learn a whole lot of plants that grew in the, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Colorado, but there's Boulder and there's Vail and there's Golden, that area. And got to go and learn a bunch of plants that were there. On the last day though, we went up higher into the Rocky Mountains, and we were looking for a very specific plant, and it's called Osha. And we went up, and the herbalist who was leading us found where the stand used to be, and she said, it's not here anymore. this happens sometimes. All right, all of you students, shoo, go look for some wild violet or wild arnica. One of them has a heart-shaped leaf, the other one has a triangle-shaped leaf, so you can tell those two apart. So we went and argued geometry for half an hour. And then she eventually found some, and she sent a student runner to go ahead and pick us all up and bring us back in. And on the way back over, I remember one of our party said, oh, she's found some OSHA. Make sure you listen to the part where she tells you how to identify it. It's really cool and really important. And they were all excited. And we went over there and she starts telling us really cool things about Labus comporteri, which is OSHA. And she starts telling us about how Native Americans consider it a sacred plant and have used it for a long time. It's called the bear plant, also bear medicine. Matter of fact, there's a video of a zookeeper who tosses OSHA into a bear pen. And the pop bear comes over and he picks it up and he's all excited and he starts going at it and then he freezes. And then because he's a good papa bear, he brings it over and drops it for mama bear. And they had been fighting for months apparently, just on the side, papa bear and mama bear. And the zookeeper actually, I think he said he cried in the notes, so he's like, oh, they're making out. But mama bear had bear arthritis, which is like arthritis except in bears. So in case you didn't catch what that is. And she wasn't moving very well. So she tore up the OSHA and she lathered it all over her fur and then she rubbed it deep into the fur down underneath and then she ate the rest. The next day, mama bear was moving better. OSHA is really good for arthritis pain. The Native Americans also knew that, and they would use it for similar things. It was a sacred plant and a useful one. So she told us this story, and she told us some other things, and then she said, and that's OSHA. And then the student who told us to listen to the identification thing, raised their hand and said, please, Mom, or whatever you want to do. That's British, there you go. Excuse me, how do you tell this apart from poison hemlock? And her reply was, oh, thank you for reminding me, by the smell. They are extremely similar. So I tell this story for 3 reasons. Number 1, there are poisonous plants. I already mentioned that poison and hemlock can kill people, and they can look a lot like the plants that we want to use. OSHA, carrot, even yarrow if you're just starting out and kind of new, all look like poison hemlock. Now, most plants aren't as poisonous as poison hemlock. It's in the top 5 in the country easily. But I'm hoping to scare you guys straight. So number 1, there are poisonous plants. Number 2, please identify your plant carefully and use more than one source to learn how to identify a plant. Because I've read stuff online and in books, printed books, and from professionals. All of them, and I have found things that are wrong. I've also gone back through my own notes that I wrote and found things that are wrong. So it's good to have more than one source. So, hello, my name is Dr. One Source. Get another one before you harvest. The last reason I tell this story is OSHA was endangered. And that was because it was over-harvested. And so this last safety tip is not for us, it's for the plants. If we overharvest them, they can go extinct, especially locally extinct. That happens a lot more than people think. Universally extinct, most are going to be hard to do that with just you, but OSHA got pushed to it, a number of other plants. Echinacea, I won't harvest wild echinacea. I need to check and see if Oklahoma's in one where it's okay or not, but golden seal, I won't harvest golden seal, definitely. And there are a number of other plants that fall into that. So before harvesting, check to see if it's endangered. And then on the little handout in the top right corner, I think it is, there's a little rules of thumb on how much you should harvest. If it's common, harvest up to 1/3 or 1/2. If it's uncommon, harvest up to 1/3, but try not to take roots. If you really need the roots, you can. And flowers, those are reproductive parts, or the roots just kill it if you take it. If they are actually endangered, take nothing but photographs, leave nothing but footprints. So all of us together up in the Rocky Mountains OSHA was no longer endangered at that point, but all 30 of us medical students together harvested one. And that was ethical at the time. It wasn't endangered, we could do that much. That was our educational experience where we could smell the root, because that's where you do the smell, by the way. The root, to me, it smells like butterscotch. Everyone tells me I'm crazy. But whereas poison hemlock smells like mouse urine. So, kind of different. One's pleasant, one's not.
Right. At least the unpleasant, you know, is the poison.
Yes, it's nice if it's not the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Here's your medicine. Oh, just like the rat nest in my brother's room, you know? But, all right, I guess the last thing that's not part of the story, medications, over 90% of them originally were sourced from plants. And so medications and plant medicine definitely can interact. A lot of plants are safe enough, like plantain, I don't have a problem with people using it. But there are some other plants that will interact, and you need to be careful. So the Cherokee, they had a grading system, and still do. I say had like past tense, but it used to be more prevalent than it is now. But my wife's actually Cherokee, so. But they would grade some plants as food level of safety. They grade some other plants as medicine level of safety. Don't just eat this all the time, but it's medicine. And then the third one, they would label it as poison. That doesn't mean that it's not good for medicine, but it means that if you mess it up, you're gonna have some consequences. And so I'll try to remember to tell you, is this a 1, 2, or a 3?
Okay.
So, yeah. All right, so that's safety. Don't eat stuff that you don't know what it is. Welcome in. And let's move on. So, for our first plant, we got this super common one. This plant is found on every continent besides Antarctica. Anyone want to take a guess? You can also try really hard to read my terrible handwriting that I like to pretend my nephew did, but it was me.
I haven't even paid attention to plants in so long.
Oh, that
I
happens.
see them around, I just don't know
Yeah,
the
you
names
see 'em
of them.
around.
I don't know
Yeah.
the names.
All right, well, this one is plantain, not the banana. Plantago is the Latin name. Interesting Latin name, actually. And there's various species. There's Plantago major, which has this larger leaf. It shriveled up before I pressed it, but it used to be bigger. And then there's Plantago lanceolata that has these longer, narrower leaves instead of the round, wider ones. Lanceolata major. Plantago is an interesting name. So when the, it's not native to this continent, by the way. When the colonials came over, Plantago has up to 20,000 seeds on its seed head per plant. So it's got a lot. And they had to do this loose static electricity thing. So as the colonials were kind of exploring the new land, they had this, you know, they were just effervescing. They were dropping off so many plantain seeds everywhere they went. And I'm half convinced they thought it was native because of how often it grows really easy. Like if you want to figure out how to grow it, grab seeds, throw. There you go, you're done. But Plantago comes from plantar. How many of you guys have heard of plantar fasciitis?
So the foot thing?
Yeah, or plantar warts. I'm sorry if you know what these are. So, plantar means bottom surface of the foot. And so Plantago, Native Americans, when they saw the colonials walking around, everywhere the white man went, his loyal plant followed him, is what they said. And so they called the plant white man's footprint. And so Plantago, plantar, foot. And so we honored the Native American name and named it Plantago to mean footprint, from white man's footprint. And so that still sticks around. So you find this guy everywhere. He's on every continent besides Antarctica, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's in a crevice in one of the research bases down there somehow. He's got a number of really good medicinal uses. I'm going to tell you a fun story. You'll find out I chase a lot of squirrels. In Idaho, there were two families that wanted to go on a camping trip together. They got their kids, they got their dogs, they started going out into the boondocks, and unlike it seems here, you can get miles and miles and miles from anyone. And they hiked like 3 days into the complete wilderness, no cell reception, none of that. It might have even been before cell was a thing. I think it might have been. And then they were having a good time until they heard a yelp, and one of the dogs had been bit by a rattlesnake that they saw going off into the bush. What are you gonna do? Run them to the hospital 3 days away? Not happening. Well, one of the people there was Dr. Patrick Jones, and he's a veterinarian, but he's also an herbalist. So,
I read about that. He's like a mountain man guy.
yeah, he looks like it, doesn't he?
Yes.
He's really cool. I've met him as well. You should, if you ever are on that side up in Idaho, he does plant walks and all kinds of things. He's definitely worth looking up. He's also got some good stuff online. But he's a good guy. The dog had been bit, and excuse me, I'm gonna get a drink here. The dog had been bit. So he went ahead and gathered up what he could. And he got some plantain, and he got some echinacea root that I think he had in his emergency medicine bag. And then he got a couple other things as well. And he mashed them all together, and he made a poultice, which is ground up plant matter that's been wetted so that it's got some moisture, and put it over the bite. And then, this is where the veterinarian stuff comes in, because I don't think I could do this. He somehow convinced the dog to eat a good amount of this plant material too. Rattlesnake venom has, actually let's talk about tissue first. We're gonna get sciencey, guys. So in our skin tissue, we have collagen. You guys have heard of that, right? It's kind of the scaffolding where a lot of other stuff builds off of. We also have hyaluronic acid. That's kind of like the mortar between the cells. We also have elastin, which is part of the mortar. And then we have a few other things as well that's part of the mortar. Rattlesnake venom has elastase, collagen ACE, and hyaluronidase. They all end in ACE, meaning they chew it up. So they destroy those. And that's why if you get a rattlesnake bite and you just stare at it like, this is interesting, then your skin falls off. It's not great. It chews it apart, and it spreads through the bloodstream as well, and so that's not good, and then it's unfun. Just put it that way. Interesting thing about plantain. Plantain has something, remember how I said hyaluronidase and all the other ACEs? Well, plantain has all of those ACEs. Anti-collagen ACE, anti-hyaluronidase, anti-elastase, meaning it takes down the venom portions. And so by putting this on the dog, by morning, the dog should have been dead. It wasn't. The venom was deactivated, and I don't think the dog was probably happy, but just by putting these plants on there, they were able to deactivate the venom enough that it actually saved the dog's life, and it didn't even lose its leg. And so plantain is a little bit of an anti-venom. Now, if you get bit, please don't say, oh, Dr. Goodman said I could just put this right here, I don't need to go to the hospital. Because those might be some of the last words you say, and it wouldn't look good on a news sheet. I just would rather you didn't. But if you don't have other options, then that's great. You know, anti-venom has been tested through millions of people. Sometimes you get a plant that's more potent or less potent than another one. But I can give you a personal story as well, however. A friend of mine got a spider bite right there. She went and got it checked out because I wasn't her doctor. That's usually how it works with friends. And she got it checked out, found out it was not a brown recluse, and then the doctor said, rightfully so, here's some pain medication and here's a few care things about what you can do on top of it. And that's what we can do for you, and send her on her way. 3 days later, she still had a massive pounding headache. Remember the location?
Yes.
Kind of makes sense. And it was 24/7. She was not sleeping well, she was not thinking well. And so I went ahead and I gave her a little bit of sap that had plantain and a couple other things in there. And we put it over the top. I didn't expect this. I expect plant medicine to work, but 2 hours later, zero headache, completely gone. spiders have similar venom, and they attack similar things. And so our first medicinal use is anti-venom. Okay, so that one's kind of dramatic. What it's used most commonly for, though, is an action called vulnerary. Anyone familiar with that word? Okay, then you can't tell me I'm pronouncing it wrong. All right, but vulnerary, there's vulnerary and vulnerary, and I hate saying it the other way with the extra R. Makes me feel like I have mush in my mouth. But vulnerary means wound healing. This not only deactivates enzymes that chew up all of the good stuff, collagen and all the rest, it also promotes growth and healing. So if you have an injury and you can either eat some plantain or take plantain leaf and put it over the injury after breaking it up, then you can go ahead and expedite, speed up your healing process. And so plantain is excellent for that. It's also really, really common.
Is that snake root?
I've heard it called snake weed, snake root maybe. This is plantain.
Plantain, we have that. This is why I wanted to get there. I've been
Awesome.
trying to get to your class for like a year.
Oh, wow.
So
All
we're
right,
gonna
well, I'm
do the
glad we're
best
here.
we can.
You're welcome to be
Everybody heard
here.
of it?
So, vulnerary, it helps it with wound healing. It's nice because it is a grade 1 plant, so it's very safe. It actually was used for thousands of years as a pot herb, meaning they would just throw it in the pot and they would eat it. It does not taste fantastic. I'm trying to remember what his name is, but there's one famous chef who became a forager because he was like, I need that flavor, I need that flavor, I need that flavor, and he finally was a forager more than a chef. Well, he's equal, really, and he's gotten awards for his cooking, that if I was sophisticated enough, I remember what those awards are called in the chef world, but I think it was the Alan Beard Award, and it's like, sounds impressive, but in his words, plantain is one of the ones where you don't introduce people to flavor using plantain. So this is, it's bitter, but it's effective.
Did her spider
So-
bite look anything like mine?
Well, we don't know if it was a spider bite one. The doctor
Well,
didn't tell us if it was a spider bite.
It
but her,
originally looked like that, and now it looks like this, and it's not healing at all.
It's been a while,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so, I mean, it's been a while since I saw my friend's bite. I didn't memorize what it looked like. It looked something like that. That was a little bit targety.
Yeah, it was
back
originally,
after 12 days
yeah,
with the purple.
yeah.
We
And
can chat a bit
then
more.
I've had steroids and antibiotics they gave me, and then it's still.
All bumpy.
Looks like you need some plantain.
I mean,
First lesson,
There's some right there.
Yeah.
first lesson.
So plantain wouldn't hurt. It is always good to make sure that if it was like a tick bite, then there's other things that can be going on.
I know, this was a bite of some sort. It burned really, really bad for like 2 hours. And then I haven't been feeling good ever since it.
Gotcha. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Plantain wouldn't hurt. But, so anti-venom, vulnerary, and then it has one more action, astringent. Astringent means that it goes ahead and, well, when you get injured, you get some swelling most of the time, right? That's fluid coming into the area because there's a whole bunch of particles, and kind of like water follows salt, water also follows particles. So when you've got damage in there with particles everywhere, you get swelling. Astringent is like taking a sponge and wringing it out. And so it moves the fluid along, it makes everything get tighter. If you do that, then all the waste products get moved, and you can have new good stuff come in. So astringent helps wounds heal as well. It also can give you that dry mouth kind of a thing if you have too much of it. It's really nice. So I'll give you two last exact uses. So it's still kind of vulnerary and astringent, but like how do you apply that? If you have a toothache, usually why you have a toothache is not because your tooth is like, you know, got knives inside of it. It's because all around the gums are swollen and there's no space. And so swollen plus no space equals lots of pain. And so if you put plantain on there, it will astringe it down pretty dang quickly. And it's almost, I don't want to use the word miraculous, but it's really stunning how much the pain can go down in like 20 minutes.
Ooh,
So
from the leaves?
The leaves, yes. So really good for toothache when it's caused because of swelling. Wasp sting, bug bites, little cuts, burns, all of it. Plantain also does really well. The way that you use it is you would take a leaf, you'd chew it up, and then, Boy Scout method, you spit it out and put it on top. So, or you can go ahead and get a mortar and pestle and grind it down, add a little bit of oil to go ahead and make so that there's some moisture to move it over, and then put it over. And congratulations that you had a mortar and pestle on your hiking trip. That's impressive.
Yeah.
What's better, the little leaves or the big one?
So the little leaves will taste better, but besides that, they're both medicinal.
So is this also good, because you mentioned tick bites?
Tick bites were, I'm saying that if you get a tick bite, you need to get some checked out to make sure that you don't have other diseases. This won't make so that Lyme disease or other stuff like that doesn't happen.
Is there anything in the plant world that helps, I guess, Lyme disease, or?
Yes, that is, I'd be happy to talk about that more after. That one's kind of a long rabbit hole. There are things that help, but there isn't a silver bullet. There are things that can eventually, make a breakthrough, but it's kind of a little bit more of a refined process. So I guess there is one other thing, actually. We didn't talk about the seed head up here, except there are 20,000 seeds. This is everybody's favorite party drug. Laxative.
Oh.
All right, so this helps you go to the bathroom. It's not a drug. Psyllium husk is basically Metamucil. They are sister plants. This is Metamucil, growing everywhere.
Oh.
So if you take a tablespoon of psyllium husk or plantain seed, you're taking Metamucil. Make sure you take enough water that it doesn't just lock you up. Yeah, that's what that is. So watch out, people might spike your punch bowl.
There you go.
So if you wanted more of that plant on your property, like, does it need like icky soil, like clay-like soil, or?
It likes sun to partial shade. It likes moderate moisture, but not bogginess. And it pretty well is gonna grow in any disturbed area. So if something has been established for a long time, he's not gonna take them over. But if it's a trail that people are walking, or there's cars that go over it, or you dug it up last summer, this is gonna be one of the first plants that moves in. Eventually, other guys will muscle him out some, but honestly, it's hard to get rid of him entirely, as long as it's still grassy. Or along the edges of forests. So he doesn't like full shade very much. Now, for identification, easiest way to get the identification is wait for the seed head to come up. When there's no seed head, there's a lot more lookalikes. But kind of once you know this one, it gets more and more familiar. Take a look at the leaves. Notice that they have parallel veins.
Okay, yeah.
If you go ahead and pinch right there, you can even feel that they are very thick.
See the lines?
Go ahead and pinch right there.
But you may want
They're
to try
washed
bentonite
ones.
clay on that bite.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it out.
Yeah, just keep doing bentonite clay, bentonite clay, bentonite clay. And tea tree.
So those thick veins are one of the identifying features. They're parallel, and they are very thick. Now, they actually go all the way back into the leaf stalk. And so,
The stock goes.
when you want to, here you go. Nice. So in the leaf stalk, those veins will go all the way back to there. And if you pull the leaf stalk, often you'll hear a snap, 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 as all those veins break one at a time, like celery.
Oh.
The leaf stalk is also shaped like celery. It's a U. So when you pull a leaf, go down to the leaf stalk and look at the end of it, and you're gonna see a U shape.
Okay.
And you're gonna see holes in it, just like celery, where the really thick fibers are. So it's a U shape with holes and parallel veins, and if you look at my expertly rendered press here, I always do rapid presses because I'm too lazy. Where are all the leaves coming from?
From the base.
The base, yeah. So the leaves do not grow off the stem. If they grow off the stem, it's the wrong plant.
Okay.
All the leaves come from the base, and the base in Latin is basal. And they come out in a spiral. A spiral is called a rosette, because roses have flowers going every direction.
Okay.
And so this is a basal rosette leafing formation. If you memorize that nerdiness, then you'll be able to say, oh, this plant should have a basal rosette, or it shouldn't. And you won't have to remember all the detail, you'll just remember yes or no, basal rosette. This one should be yes,
Okay.
and that will help you a lot.
Yeah, 'cause you're right, the steps everywhere, I see it all over.
Yeah.
Take the pictures.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you can take a picture of a different plant and it's probably photobombing.
Wow.
So, let's see, was there anything else on identification? The broadleaf one, usually it's bigger than this, is also easier. So we talked about how it kind of is fat. And then these skinny lance-like ones, that's Plantago lanceolata. This one's Plantago major. Major is easier to identify. There's fewer lookalikes that have fatter leaves. So you can go for that one, but the seed head really helps you. That's what I look for when I'm looking out into the grass and I feel like maybe there's a seed head right there. You can see it much farther than the rest of the plant. So that's Plantago. Any questions?
That's very good.
All right, let's move to the next one. Nature's Band-Aid. Anyone want to take a guess, I guess, before I pull up the name here?
Wild lettuce?
That's not a bad guess. This is not wild lettuce, but I can see why you think so. The leaves can be somewhat different.
These are jagged enough.
Yeah, wild lettuce is more jagged.
Hmm.
This is, the reason there are two leaves is because the first one I worked really hard to get it nice and flat. And then I realized this thing never looks flat in nature, ever. And so I did another one next to it. This is curly dock, also known as yellow dock. The Latin name is Rumex crispus. The leaves, I'm going to come around with pictures that'll probably help a little more than the press, actually. The
Oh.
leaves are big and floppy, and they have this like curl to the edge that sometimes they'll like groove this way, sometimes they'll go ahead and be stiffer. They're really variable. So it also has been known as, there are lots of things called ironweed. This one's been called ironweed as well. Because when it dies off, it turns rust red. And that's where it is right now.
Oh,
All
yes.
seeds are rust red.
Oh, yeah, you
sticking
can
up.
take that to improve your iron, is what I've heard.
Yes.
Yeah, when I
So,
was pregnant.
This is one of the plants that you can take to improve your iron intake because there actually is iron in it, and the reason it's red really is because the iron is rusted.
Uh-huh.
And so it's actually,
So the roots are bringing up the iron from in the soil into the plant.
Yeah.
yes. Yep. And so, and that's where some of the color comes from, is from the iron itself. So, Native Americans would use this as a food source. Everything above ground, edible.
Oh.
Below ground, grade 2, medicinal. So above ground, the leaves, they're tart. They have something called citric acid, similar thing as what is found in oranges. Roman soldiers are believed to have chewed on the leaves just to get rid of thirst, because citric acid is a refreshing kind of effect on the mouth, and they would suck on them. These are tart. Some of them have some bitterness underneath, some of them don't. They also have another acid, oxalic acid. Anyone familiar with that? No? Spinach has that as well. So if people have kidney stones or gout, or usually those two, there's a few others, but if you have those issues, oxalic acid makes that more likely. So your doctor might say, don't have any more spinach. Usually spinach is healthy, but if you're having kidney stones, probably shouldn't go ahead and give more of the little bit of issue in that direction. This also has oxalic acid. So those two acids give it that tart flavor. So the leaves are the ones that are tart. Now the seeds, that's what the Native Americans would use. They would harvest all those seeds, and they have little wings on the seeds. Here's for future you. Little wings on those seeds.
Oh, helicopters, she calls them.
Helicopters.
Yeah, I can see why you call them that. There are 3 wings with the achene, or the seed, in the very center. Kind of like if you had a dolphin with 3 fins and then the dolphin's body is in the center, that's where the seed is. So,
Yeah, 3 ones, we don't have ones with 3, ours have 2.
you need to identify this, you look for the red stalk, you look for the 3 wings on the seeds, and then you can take those seeds, grind them up, and they will make a very nice flour, gluten-free. And it's kind of like buckwheat. It can be bitter or it can be not bitter and then nutty in flavor. It depends on the plant stems. If you're going to go ahead and cook with it, mix it 50-50 with normal flour and it'll work out a lot better. Otherwise it's crumbly. But it's a good nutrient profile. So, I shouldn't have put so much drying sage in this.
So is this considered like a, because I was reading like a nightshade?
No, this one's not in the nightshade family. Or if it is, then I've forgotten that Rumex is included in that. I don't think it is. So, good question. I don't believe so.
There's a homeopathic remedy called Rumex. It's probably,
Yeah, there's a number of Rumex plants that are used in a lot of different ways, and homeopathy, I'm sure, has Rumex occidentalis, which is sorrel rather than this one, I think, but they might have Rumex crispus as well. So, we've talked about above the ground, seeds for flour, leaves for food. Don't overdo them if you have kidney stones. The root is actually fantastic medicine. It's not food usually though. If you cut the root, we find out why it's called yellow dock. There is a molecule called chrysofanic acid that is what one of the active ingredients in the root is, and you can see chrysofanic acid is yellow, and you can literally see darker yellow or lighter yellow based on how strong the medicine of the root is. And it goes towards the center of the root. So, yellow dock root is really good for a couple different things. Number one, it is a liver tonic. So it helps the liver process toxins.
okay.
Number two, it is alterative. So it helps purify the blood, mostly by helping the liver, also by helping the kidneys.
Oh.
It also helps the skin, because our liver, he detoxifies all of everything for the body, but when he gets overwhelmed, which happens when your ethnicity is American, not ethnicity, whatever.
Right.
If your culture is American, it's like, liver problems. You know, it's really common. Then your skin is gonna show that, because your skin is the sidekick to the liver. Liver's like, I got too much to do. Skin starts to try to detoxify, and it puts stuff out, and then you get breakouts and acne. There are other reasons you can get that too, but that's a really common one. And so yellow dock can be really nice for cleaning the skin by cleaning the blood, by cleaning the liver.
Oh. Yeah.
It's also a laxative. So it's gonna move the stuff that it cleans out. So it's a nice little package right there. You can also do a really cool thing with the roots where you cut it up, you boil them for 10 minutes, about a quarter cup to a half cup of root, and then you do that in about a quart of water, and then you pour it into a bathtub, and you sit in it for a while. Why would you do this? Well, herbalist Michael Moore, he was foraging by a swamp. And then his friend's like, oh, I need to go get something from the store. I'll be right back. And then he goes, and he doesn't come back for like 3 hours. And so now Michael Moore is completely covered in mosquito bites.
Oh.
And so, not a great time. He said, oh yeah, how many did you get? Oh, about 42,327, I think. You know, I didn't ask him in person. He passed before I was able to meet him, but he had a sense of humor through his books. And yellow dock into the bathtub, that's what you do to calm it all down.
Wow.
So, yellow dock's really cool. Been around for a long time, really good medicine. I use the root commonly in my clinic because the liver is your favorite organ, might be the brain, it might be the heart. Your brain and heart's favorite organ is the liver, because the liver does something for everybody in the body. And if your liver isn't working, everything else is suffering. So, all right, let's move on to our last plant. We have Rus capellinum, winged sumac.
Huh.
This one is much better known all throughout the Mediterranean Sea. How many of you guys like Mediterranean food? Anyone? All right, we three can go out and eat later, right? That's good stuff. But Mediterranean food often uses a specific seasoning blend called za'atar. And it's got some lemony punch to it. There are about 5 ingredients in za'atar, but the one that brings that lemon out and that makes it the signature flavor of all the Mediterranean coastline is sumac.
Huh.
So this is a delicious wild edible that grows here with leaves that look roughly like so. They're usually green, but as soon as they dry, they start getting this red tinge, and then once they dry fully, they go fully red, or at least as much as you see here. When you're driving by in fall and you see some that are like spotted red and green, that's usually these guys. Notice along the stalk, there are little mini leaves that are along the stem. See how they come off the sides?
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's called winged sumac. It's got little wings that come off the stalk in between the leaves. Wings come off the stalk.
Yeah.
That's why it's winged sumac. So that's helpful to identify it. Sumac is, I call it like the diabetic's delight because it tastes great. It's got this tart flavor. It also lowers blood sugar. And it also makes insulin work better. And so this is one, if I ever have enough, I'll use it in my clinic. But my sister-in-law down in Texas, she loves to cook. And she's like, I need more! So I haven't had any make it to the clinic yet, really. But someday.
You
So
grow
someone's
that.
using, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Someone's on insulin and then they can supplement this to make everything work better?
It will make the cells listen to insulin better. So insulin knocks on the cell's door and says, hey, let sugar in. Diabetics usually ignore the knock on the door. Their cells do. And so this makes so that the knock on the door is listened to better. Does this mean that type 1 diabetics will not need to use insulin? Absolutely not. Type 1 diabetes, you don't make something critical. Type 2 diabetes, if you're on insulin, and that usually means you're pretty far along in the process, this would help. You need to have a practitioner doing, as soon as insulin's in the game, you need a practitioner. Because you can have some sad stories that I've heard about coming off it too quick. Can you reverse type 2 diabetes? Yes. Yes, you can.
But not
And this would help.
type 1.
Type 1, there's some really excellent studies about being able to regrow islet cells in the pancreas under certain conditions. And some of those conditions can be completely done naturally, and then there's other methods as well. We don't know for sure yet, and playing with it, it's kind of a precision thing, because you cannot live without insulin. So it would be, I won't say it's not possible, I'll say that right now it's experimental. So, and I haven't seen it myself be completely successful, although theoretically it could be. So that's the level of type 1 diabetes. So when you see these dark red clusters of berries, you know, number 1, it's a female plant, and number 2, that it is not poison. Poison sumac.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that this is poison sumac, and everyone thinks that all of its sisters are poison sumac. Poison sumac has white berries all the time, period at the end, white berries. And almost all the time, you have to crawl through a bog to find it, because it doesn't like growing anywhere that we are. It likes being in the middle of lots of muck. Yes, good word. So, to identify it, look for these berries, you can tap a berry with your finger, look for the wings on the thing. After you've done both of those and you're like, I'm pretty sure that's it, then you can tap it, you can rub the berries with your finger, lift your finger. It should be sour, unless it rained today or yesterday. That takes all the sour off. These berries, they have little hairs, and they're coated in acids that are tasty. Food acids. There's a number of different acids that are there. I don't remember every one that's there. There's like a blend of 3 acids. I think acetic acid is one of them, citric acid, malic acid. Oh, well, thank you, Ray. Apparently there we go. And so something that's really common for sumac, and that's kind of traditional, is you take some sumac and you dip it into your pitcher of water, you shake it around, and then you take it back out, and then you ignore the bug or two, and then you go ahead and take a drink, and you have sumac lemonade. It usually takes about 20 minutes just sitting there. And so sumac lemonade, really nice, really refreshing, because it has those acids that we talked about for yellow dock as well. They're refreshing. It's also strongly anti-inflammatory, which can help with diabetes and everything else in it. It's also just, frankly, it's just delicious. So the seeds inside the berries are they're pits. So you can break a tooth on them. And so the berries, you usually don't just eat them as berries. You usually are going to put them in a blender and then knock all the seeds out of the berries. The seeds are edible, but they're hard, like a cherry pit. And they technically are pits. This is a drupe, and technically, these are, what do you call the pitted fruits? I'm dropping it right now. But anyway, and then once you've blended and knocked all the seeds out, the seeds are hard enough that they usually don't shatter, but even if they do, they're still edible. And so then you can put it through a sieve and mash it through and get all the lovely spice that is famous all through the Mediterranean, because it's that good. It's also very good for you. So, I think that's what I've got for that one as well. Any questions on our last plant, winged sumac? All right, then I'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you guys for coming. And this is a monthly event. Usually it's on first Tuesdays at 5:30 here. I've also got 3 other libraries that I go to. You can find my website on my business card, and you can click through into workshops, events and workshops, and you click on that, and there are tabs up at the top, and you can click across those. You'll see my schedule, basically. Other events, I am doing a Foundations of Home Herbalism course. And it's going to go 8 months, 1 day a month. And you learn how to think like an herbalist. You learn how to formulate. You learn how to do safety. You learn how to make medicine with oil bases, water bases, alcohol bases, the whole gamut. And so that is starting 3rd Saturdays this month. So if you're interested in that, come and talk to me after, or take a card and call me, or you can sign up online. Other events, I'm doing a plant walk on the 4th Saturday of this month. It'll be down in Little Kansas. So we're just gonna go and meet the plants out in the wild. I can't always bring all the live plants with me. I used to, and it just was, my wife didn't like our car look. After I tried to bring actually curly dock. See how many seeds are on that dried stem?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the last one.
When is the plant walk in Kansas?
Plant walk in Kansas, that's a great question. What time is it? It's on the website.
Okay.
I want to say that it's 9:30. Yes, 9:30 in the morning.
Okay.
That one is a paid entry,
Yeah.
but would be great to have you. $40 or $50 for a pair.
So I looked on the site, so you're gonna be doing the hydrocolon therapy? Or hydrotherapy?
It's not hydrocolon, it's not enemas. Hydrotherapy is where you do temperature modulation through water across the body.
Okay.
And so we're playing with blood vessels, opening and closing them, and it's really good for getting vitality back up.
Hydrotherapy.
Yes. So,
Wouldn't that would increase the oxygen, wouldn't it?
yeah, you're getting some delivery up, you're waking the blood vessels up,
Yeah.
and making so that they're better at delivering.
I didn't know
And,
what it is,
yeah.
but I knew that.
And so I guess the last announcement is I have a clinic and I have services. If anyone's interested, there's a sign up for a free 15-minute consult in the back. If you'd like to chat and see if we're a good match, that's a good way to do it. Rather than the rest. So that's what I thought. Thank you guys for coming.
Ooh, thank you so much.
Okay, so for Little Kansas, sir,
Mhm.
you said fourth Saturday this